Hello. Well, that style of game's getting familiar now, isn't it? Golden Knights give up the first goal. That was actually the fastest goal in the history of T-Mobile Arena for another team. Golden Knights have scored faster multiple times. I want to say like four times, three times. I know Carlson has one. Pacioretty has one. I think Marchessault has one as well. That's a little bit faster than the 21 seconds. But that was the fastest goal in the history of T-Mobile Arena for an away team in a regular season game. I did not go through all the playoff games. I'm assuming it probably is for a playoff game because off the top of my head, I can't think of a single home playoff game where they gave up a goal in the very first shift. So that was fast. Nonetheless, usually, and maybe it's time to start pulling out our William Hill mobile sports apps once the Golden Knights give up the first goal, because when they do, they win. They're like 650 points percentage now when they give up the first goal. That is insane considering the league is somewhere in the 300s. They're unbelievable when they go behind at all. Like if they go behind at any point in any game, they're really, really good at coming back. They are out of control scoring 3 goals in a row. Like I'll tell you the story. I had the story written up. My buddy Kevin on Discord was helping me with some of the stats, and we were all ready to go. And then I wanted to check one more thing, and then I looked up Montreal, and I'm like, they always score 3 in a row against Montreal. I'll just wait; it'll be fine. We'll just wait for them to score 3 in a row against Montreal, and then I'll post it at that point. Of course, that one went the other way, that they gave up 3 in a row in that game. And then the very next game, they popped 3 in a row and beat a team coming from behind yet again, get a 4-1 lead. It's, whatever I tweeted, like 46% of the games, which is out of control. The team history, it's somewhere in the neighborhood of a little under 30% of the time that they score 3 unanswered in a game. They're doing it 46% this season. And the best part of that, at least in my opinion, and at least in the opinion of anyone who wants this team to do anything significant as we move forward, is it's happening because of defending. You think about this game. Think about how long it took to get the 3 goals in a row. Like there was nothing at the end of the first period. They come in, they score all 3 in the second period, then they get a 4th one in the third period. And they really didn't need it because even down the stretch, they weren't giving up all that much dangerous. The power play happens. They give up the goal on the power play. So be it. Didn't love the penalty kill on that one. Something happened on the draw that Eichel didn't like. I didn't fully understand it. I'll probably go back and watch that at some point. Nonetheless, it's really good to see this team starting to really turn that corner in every single way with their defending. And what's nice is the next step of evolution has started to happen inside of 8 games, 10 games, somewhere in that neighborhood. I think it happened somewhere inside of December. By the way, the creepy dragon is over there. I decided to stand in a new place because I always do it from over there, and I figured I'll just do it from over here. I kind of like this one. I don't know about this little ledge, and I'm kind of like down here, which is a little weird, but that's not bad. I like it. Reminds me, I'm going to be honest, now that I think about it, this spot, like I'm kind of like there's like a thing above me here, and then it kind of reminds me of when I did the Dallas Game 7 one. I was kind of in this spot, and there was green lights all over the place, and it's given me those vibes. So maybe I'll never do this again. I don't know. Don't make decisions live on the air. I'm not making decisions live in the air. But the evolution of the defending is they're starting to score. And it's not just ripping shots from the point. It's not just these opportunities that are coming from a long, long way away from the goal. No, this is activation. This is guys joining the rush. This is guys being down deep in the slot. In today's game, it's a wraparound goal from Nick Hague. Like, this is the next step of this team being excellent defensively and also being potent consistently offensively. I understand that they've scored a lot of goals over the course of the season. I understand that it looks real good on a lot of the stats, and it looks like all these guys are going to score 20 goals, and it looks like all these things are going to happen. Very little of that's going to happen. The team is still not going to be elite offensively, in my opinion. I do think the power play is going to be more of a weapon as we go through this season. And as we get into the most important games down the stretch, we are going to be able to rely on that a little bit more. I think maybe like 1 in 4, 25% is probably realistic to expect from them in a postseason series. That was not the case in the past. It was usually somewhere in the ballpark of 1-5. So 1-4 versus 1-5, that's a big bonus. That's an extra power play, maybe 2 goal in a series. That's good. But as a whole, I don't know that you're going to get that consistent offense. I don't think they're going to be a 4-goal-a-night game in the playoffs. I don't even know that they're going to get to a 3-goal-a-night game in the playoffs. So to get to enough and close enough to score 3, 4, or 5 of the games in the 7, you're going to need what they've started to get now. And I think back to the last game. Obviously, now the last game is a loss, so that's disappointing. But think back to the last game and where Hannafin's goal came from. That's the one. There was also the White Cloud goal. Now, the White Cloud goal, he's in the position that he needs to join the rush. In that situation, if you watch the goal back, it's pretty clear that in that spot, he's got to be the one that goes because you need all 3 guys coming forward. Good on White Cloud to recognize that and go. That is definitely very good. But I don't think that was necessarily a system style. In this case, the second goal last game was Hannafin getting forward, approaching the middle of the ice. And when the puck gets poked away, it ends up right on his stick, and he's 15, 20 feet away from the goal in the most dangerous scoring area you can be in. Earlier this season, or more so, I guess I would say, earlier this season, it was not great defensively, and therefore I think we were starting to get some offense out of that because they were being a little more risky. Then it started to back off, and we were getting no offense at all out of the blue liners. Now it's starting to crop back up, and the defense is continuing to be good. I think that's because you're getting more comfortable as a group, understanding when they can jump into the play, when to extend plays, when to take that risk and put yourself in a scoring position to give this team an extra added layer of offense that they're going to need. Seeing that in that game today, Haig was very active even before the goal. I noticed how often he was up in the play. You're seeing Theodore join the rush a little bit more. Hannafin's been way more active. What McNabb has gotten deep in the zone a couple of different times and scored. Think back to the shorty. That one's a little different. Nonetheless, you're starting to see more because it's getting more. There's more comfort in how they're playing and how they're defending by getting up the ice and making sure that they're still defensively responsible. And in a game like this, where it's another high-level forechecking team, I don't think this team's particularly good. They're not. I don't know that they have a ton of super high-end talent. We didn't notice Michkov all that much today. Konechny scores on the power play, but not a ton from him the rest of the game. I thought Tippett had a pretty good game against the Golden Knights. He was fairly noticeable. But the rest, you think of the most noticeable offensive players, they were pretty much all on the Golden Knights side, even though I didn't think that was a terribly unbalanced game. I didn't think that's the type of game where the Golden Knights just run away with it. And as I said in my analysis on the site after the game, was basically that this was a hard game. This was a hard game to play. It was hard to get out of the defensive zone. It was hard to get through the neutral zone. It was hard to get to the middle of the ice. It was hard to get shots through. It was hard to win battles in front of the goal on both sides. And the Golden Knights just were more comfortable in that. It's kind of weird because the first 20 seconds, they weren't. They got beat up for the first 20 seconds. And as beat up as you can get in 20 seconds, it's one goal in front of the goal, whatever. But it was not good. It was kind of everything went wrong in that 20 seconds and you end up behind in the game. But then from there, from the remaining 59 minutes and 39 seconds, the Golden Knights were better. They were better exiting. They were better in puck support. That was a huge thing I noticed today, was the puck support was so much better than the last game. The last game, there were a ton of issues getting the puck out of the zone. Decision-making wasn't particularly good. Outlets weren't particularly good. When there were loose pucks or possible turnovers, the Golden Knights were never there to be there to collect that puck, to pick it back up and put themselves in a position to get something done. In this case, they were. Puck support was way better. Every time there was a loose puck, the Golden Knights were either on top of it to pick it up, or they were there to put a stick on it and make something happen there. So that's big. That's a huge part of dealing with these heavier forechecking teams. It's something that has been a bit of a problem. It's been a lot of Eastern Conference teams that we've seen some of the problem where they do send 2 guys in and then it gets real dangerous where they're really pinching up and trying to make all these turnovers, and that's where their offense is going to come from. It's a little odd to me that we're not seeing a ton of breakaway chances or 2-on-1 chances or kind of beating that pressure out of the zone. I think that's one that maybe that's an evolution the Golden Knights need to look into, is like that used to be something that was very common, certainly in the Gallant days, at times during the DeBoer days, certainly in the Cup run, where if you really got up there and really forechecked the Golden Knights, they're going to hit that play off the wall, have a center flying out of the ice, and they're going to get a 2-on-1, sometimes even 3-on-1 against you. We haven't seen a ton of that. Like, really, in this game, I don't even know that there was one. I remember the Ronbier breakaway. There was maybe a near 2-on-1 that Howden had that he couldn't quite handle the puck and get it off of his stick. But other than that, there wasn't a ton of that stuff. So I'd like to see that get back into the game as they continue to get better blocking shots, better defending the middle of the ice, better at gapping up and making it hard to gain their blue line. That's been growing as time has gone on. So that's certainly a huge positive. There's a couple of questions over here. I will take those. But first, I will tell you that every Periscope on SinBin.vegas is brought to you by the Jimmerson Law Firm. The Jimmerson Law Firm is one of Las Vegas's preeminent law firms specializing in high-stakes business, civil, and family litigation. When winning matters, we're back to winning. The first win of this year, which is nice, which is good, because a lot of times the second year of the 2-year season is not as good. When winning matters, seek out the Jimmerson Law Firm. Are you surprised that they signed so many of their players on expiring contracts, doing that to prevent themselves having flexibility of trading for a player? Yeah, like, yes and no. Am I surprised that they signed a lot of these guys? No. I'm not surprised, because I think that there was a reasonable expectation that a lot of these guys, because of the ages of them, and we're talking about Kolazar, Howden, and Theodore mostly. McNabb maybe surprises me a little bit. I think they probably just presented a deal that both sides were pretty happy with and thought, let's just go for it. So I guess that one maybe surprises me a little bit. The other ones really don't. I think everything was kind of met for all of those contracts. The dollars were there, the years were there. The situation wasn't going to change all that much. I think maybe if Howden scores 35 goals or something, maybe the situation changes a little bit for him. But even then, I'm not sure it does that much. Like, it's one time. So no, as far as like its ability to make things happen, I'm not sure that that's actually true. I think there's an argument that maybe it gives them even more, or at least certainly the same amount of flexibility. It gives you a little bit more understanding of what you have in the future. So the Golden Knights have historically, it has changed a little bit over the last couple of years, but historically, they kind of shy a little bit away from rentals. They don't want to sell big-time assets to buy rentals. Now, we've seen a little bit of it. Bluger was there, Cousins, you know, who was the other one last year's? Mantha. So we've seen a little bit of it, but I still think that is kind of like an overwhelmed or overreaching tenet of the style of management that they're going for, is like, let's win now and in the future. Let's focus on both. And I think that making these moves to shore up basically your entire blue line, most of your depth, or at least most of your forward group is now under contract. I think it gives you more freedom to say, all right, what do we have with Olofsson? What do we have with Holtz? What do we have with guys like Schwint and Brisson and other guys down the lineup? And where do we want to go from there? Where do we want this to, what do we want this to look like next year? What do we want this to look like at the deadline? I don't think they're that hamstrung by cap space. I don't think they're that hamstrung by where they're at in regards to contracts. I think the only thing that really I would say would hamstring them at this time would be the fact that they don't have a lot of high-end assets that are off of the NHL roster. Like, you could trade a Korzak, you could trade a Haig, you could trade someone else. You could go down any road you want with any player on the NHL roster. But that's not usually the way it goes. The only time we've really seen that is with Tuck for Eichel, and I think that's kind of a once-in-a-lifer. You know, like, that's an opportunity to get Eichel. Go ahead. They went ahead and did it. They had to take a roster player off. They didn't do that with Hannafin. They didn't do that with Hertl. They didn't do that with even Stone. You go back, like, yeah, it was Lindbergh, but it wasn't that big of a deal. So really over the course of time, I think they've indicated that like we want to use future assets. And unfortunately, there's no first round pick this coming year. There's no first round pick the next year. The only first round pick that's really worth anything in the system is Trevor Connolly, looking pretty good in World Junior, so that's good. But because of what happened at the deadline or at the draft or before the draft, I don't know that there's a ton of worth in him as a first round pick yet. I think down the road, maybe it can come back, but I don't know that it's there. So it's really just like this wealth of second round picks, which doesn't truly allow you to go out and get some superstar the same way that they've done in the past. Like, I don't think if the Hurdle deal presents itself again, that they're going to have the ammo to actually do it. So that's where I would say they're a little bit hamstrung. That being said, one of the best teams in the Western Conference, one of the best teams in the NHL, fairly consistent to this point. Scoring, defending, goaltending's been good. Penalty kill's been good. Power play's been pretty good. There's not a ton of weakness at the moment. I think like the main weakness is they go behind. And that can even hardly be a weakness because then they erase it and go back ahead and win most of the games they end up going behind. So there isn't a ton of weakness. So it doesn't look like you need to go out and grab anything massive. Like maybe you could say depth is a weakness. I'm not even sure I'd go there because some of these guys have filled in pretty well. Like Ronebier's been fine. Lazinski's been all right. Cal Burke's been pretty good at times when he's been here. Schwintz certainly has stepped in and done a fine job himself. I don't like they're down two forwards. They were down Stone for a while. Like I think we're starting to see the league thin out a little bit. I don't think that they're really all that thin. It's just, is there going to be enough when we get to the biggest games? That's going to remain the question, and we're not going to have an answer for that until we get there. We're going to keep gaining more information. I don't know we gain a ton out of what it looks like against Philadelphia. I don't know we gain a ton out of what it looks like against Montreal. But I do think as we move forward, and we've seen some of these difficult games, as the season goes on, as scoring gets harder and harder, will they be able to find their way? And I think that so far has been pretty good. How much is this the Butch system versus the players? Butch system versus player. Is that not what it said? Yeah, I think I understand what you're saying. It's both. Like the way that the team defends, I think, is mostly Cassidy's system. Like I guess I'll put it this way. They can defend in many different systems and they would be pretty good. They have a very good defense score. Like all six guys are pretty good. There's two more guys waiting in the wings that are also pretty good. Like it's a darn good defensive core. And I think that they are pretty good in any situation defensively. Now, I think if you were to put this group with a different coaching staff, maybe with a more offensive-minded coaching staff, I think you would give up a lot more goals, but you would also potentially be getting 20 goals out of Theodore, 10 out of Hanifin, 10 out of Pietrangelo, where I think we're more likely to get maybe 10 out of Theodore, 7, 6, somewhere in that neighborhood out of the other two guys. Maybe it's a little higher as we go on, we will see. As far as how they defend and the style in which they defend, and I think a big part of this is the way that they defend works in the playoffs. We have seen this. We know this. We've watched it. It works with big goalies behind them. They have two of them. It works when they're able to play that system. Will it work again? Hopefully. I think it's fairly likely that it works again. Am I picking them to win the cup? Not yet. But I do think that the system is putting them in a position to be consistent. They're consistently good defensively because the only way that it really falls completely apart is when the puck management goes to complete shit, which happened against Montreal for a little bit. It has happened at different times in the past. It does not happen all that often. So because of that, I think as a whole, it does have to do with the system that they're consistent. But the reason they're winning most of the games, the reason they've been as good as they've been for as long as they've been is not the coaching staff. We know that because the coaching staff before was good. The coaching staff before them was good. So it's not all the coaching, but it does certainly help that a part of it is that. Who was almost scratched tonight? I don't know. So they brought up Lazinski and moved Barbashev to IR. Typically, they don't just make these moves for nothing. Like that's something we've learned over the course of 8 years is it's not just we need an extra player. Let's just have the extra player. And in the case of Lazinski, he's already played 5 games. He's been on the roster for a little while. He was on the roster over Christmas, which counted for the days. Like, I think that there was a reason for it. Clearly, someone was potentially not going to be able to go. Hopefully, they don't end up having to put Lazinski back on waivers. I don't know if he gets through or not. Either way, I would rather not see him have to go on waivers. So the hope would be you would not have to use him 5 more times before now and what would it be, March 8th or whatever it is. So hopefully that's not the case. But if they have to, so be it. I don't know. I would guess because everyone was on the ice this morning, it was probably not injury related. That being said, the way that it was discussed by Cassidy did kind of indicate maybe it was injury related. Like somebody gave it a go in morning skate and they were going to learn more and they weren't sure. I guess it's possible that it was the flu. I don't know. Whether it was illness or injury, we don't know. Hopefully we never find out. Hopefully we go back and we look at that and down the road say, whatever. Doesn't really matter. Nobody ended up being out. We're in good shape. That's what I'm hoping is the case, but we shall see on that. Good to see Holtz come back. Good to see Holtz score. By the way, that goalie on the other side was awful. Holy shit. The wraparound was terrible. The third goal that he allowed was terrible. The goal he allowed to Holtz was terrible. Like, that's 2 wins now against the Flyers, and both times the Golden Knights win that game because the other goalie's terrible. Like, I think they were the better team today, but I don't think it was by a wide margin. It certainly wasn't by a 5-2 margin. But, like, they went behind again. They get a couple of cheapy goals. Only the 1 power play. I think it was fortunate that this was a game where there wasn't a lot of calls. I know that the Golden Knights got tripped a number of different times. I thought the refereeing basically just swallowed the whistles today. I think in the way that we saw how special teams went, Golden Knights power play was a bit of a mess today. Penalty kill was really good. Was not very good. Second one was a little bit better, but not particularly great. I think because of that, it's probably good that they swallowed the whistles. But the biggest thing to me is like their goalie was terrible. So like as much as I'm pumped that Holtz got the goal, and hopefully Holtz is okay. He whatever went on with his knee, hobbled down the tunnel. Didn't look like he put any weight on it, and then he comes back later and plays in the game. It's 4-2. That's nice to see. So hopefully he's okay. We'll get more information on that probably in the next couple of days. I don't know that we've gotten the schedule yet to see if they're skating tomorrow. I'm sure they'll skate Saturday before the game. We will see on that. If anybody else has any other questions, go ahead and pop them in the chat before I get out of here, because I think I'm out of things that I want to say today. Why do teams suck for so long? Because it's hard to not suck. It's hard to find good players to be able to not suck. And it's hard to put together a group of players that allow you to not suck. And the other thing is, like, look at the Golden Knights going back to the expansion draft. Like, a lot of what they've done goes back to the expansion draft. The expansion draft was very good for the Golden Knights. I understand everyone thought it was going to be shit. I did too. I get that. It ended up not being shit at all. Like, they had a lot of good players in the roster. They had a lot of added assets. A lot of what they've done has come directly from the expansion draft. And I'm not just talking about only the players that were there taken in the expansion draft. I'm also talking about the assets that were traded to get players from the expansion draft. Eichel comes from that. Stone comes from that. So that certainly is where it gave this team a really good base. Like, Eichel comes from expansion draft assets. Stone comes from expansion draft assets. You have Carlson, Theodore, McNabb. All of those are directly taken out of the expansion draft. That gives you kind of that core that allows you to then buy other players as they move forward and give themselves good opportunity to continue being good. Good coach, decent goaltending the entire way. All of that allowed them to do things. And yeah, like Chris said, it kind of allowed them to set up for all these mulligans, for all these opportunities where maybe if they made a bad decision on a player, let's say a Tomas Tatar, they had the extra draft picks, they had the extra opportunity to say, all right, we're good, we can move forward. Now, as those players tick off, as these guys start to get old, as you start to not get the same skill level and production out of some of them, it is going to be interesting to see, are they able to replace these guys in free agency? Are they able to continue making some of these big trades that have gotten them into these situations? Are some of these trades that, specifically the Hurdle one, are those going to continue going as well as some of the ones did in the past? Time will tell. don't think it's time to really worry about that now. Do you think VGK will look at signing Jonathan Toews? I don't. I would be surprised if they sign Jonathan Toews. LA might beat Edmonton this year. Do I agree? I don't. I think Edmonton's significantly better than LA still. I understand that LA is playing better. I don't fully buy LA. I certainly don't really buy LA in a playoff series. And it's kind of, in a weird way, it's kind of similar to my concern with the Golden Knights. Like, they stack wins. They're getting all these wins. They're doing it in ways that seem replicable. Power play has been good. Penalty kill has been good. 5-on-5 is pretty good. Third periods are really good. Like, there's a lot of reason to say, like, this is going to go well. But then there's also a lot of reason to say, I don't know if they're going to be able to score. And that's the same kind of feeling I have with the Kings. Yeah, sure, go ahead, score against the Ducks and San Jose and Utah and Seattle and everybody, and stack up all these wins and give yourself all these wins. And yeah, you play the occasional good game against whoever's better, whatever. That's not really how you win in the playoffs. It's, can you win 4-7 against a team that's very good and will specifically scout certain things you do? I am concerned about that. With the Golden Knights, I would certainly be concerned about that with the Kings. I am less concerned about that with Edmonton because I don't think there's a way to slow down their best players. We saw it last year. Golden Knights did as good a job as they could possibly do 2 years ago and got past them. I think they're better now. I think that's a better team now. And I don't know that the Golden Knights are anywhere close to as good as they were then. Like, I think if you just compare the rosters, they're not even close. Maybe there are players that we will start to have different thoughts about as we move forward, and maybe the rosters will be closer at that time. But I don't think so right now. What do I think happens with Hill after the year? I think he re-signs in Vegas. I think the goalie coach here loves him. I think the coaching staff on the bench is perfectly fine with him and believes he's capable enough to do it. And I think the front office is like, yeah, as long as you stay healthy, we could prove, we could trust you moving forward, that we're in no concern. I think it'll probably be somewhere in the sixes. I would imagine it's probably in the low sixes. UC Saros is the one that I kind of look at and I say, that's the contract that you kind of model it after. I think the Golden Knights, I would say Hill's probably not as good as UC Saros, but I would assume that that's kind of where it will land. How long? That's going to be interesting. 4, 5, 6. I don't know. Like, that's going to be tough because you're going to have to do it off of 1 year of being healthy. So if he makes it through this year being healthy, that's certainly a huge benefit. If he does not, I think it can really, really hurt. Like, if he gets injured for a 10-game, 15-game stretch, like, it's going to cost him millions and millions of dollars. So for his sake and for the Golden Knights, I guess for the Golden Knights' sake, for our watching the game's sake and winning games now's sake, I hope it doesn't happen. For the long term, like, maybe it wouldn't be the worst thing if it were a couple of $1 million less and we have that extra money. But for now, let's hope he doesn't. As far as Samsonov, I would assume Samsonov goes elsewhere. I think he's playing well enough that he's going to get somewhere closer to like Brossoit money, 2.5, 3, somewhere. And the Golden Knights should not pay that for a backup. As long as Cassidy's the coach of the team, they should not pay more than what they're paying now, which is $1 million. Just find the next guy. Find another guy that's a castaway and plug him in behind this defense. If the defense plays well, the goalies are all going to be good enough. I think there's 50 goalies that can do well behind the Golden Knights. Does that mean they're going to do better than Adin Hill? No. Does that mean they're going to do better than Samsonov? Not necessarily. But I think there's a lot of goalies that can succeed behind the Golden Knights. And I don't mind investing in one, or at least investing some in one. I'm not doing $10 million. I'm not doing anything like that. But I don't mind like some investment in a goalie, but let's not go nuts and invest in 2 of them at high dollars, start paying the backup. Like, that makes no sense when the roster is as it is. Thanks again to the Jimmerson Law Firm for sponsoring all of the Periscopes this season. I will be back at some point later in, I don't know, one of these next couple of games. We will see. Join the Discord. I have the Discord open for, I believe, one more day. If you're not in the Discord, go ahead and join the Discord. If you don't have a .vegas domain, buy a .vegas domain. I'm sending free T-shirts to everybody that does get a .vegas domain. Or if you've had a .vegas domain in the past, buy one of those. Just tell me, and we'll still get you a T-shirt. So that's good. What kind of big name will they get at the deadline? I don't think they're going to get a big name. I do think it's potentially a player with term, but I don't think they're going to do a big name because I don't think they can afford it in regards to the amount of assets that they have for the future. I don't think 3 second-round picks buys you the type of name that we have seen. Yes, I am still scared of Dallas. I think Dallas is very good. I think Dallas is the type of team that over the course of the last few years has realized the unimportance of the regular season. And I think when you finally get to a point where we get to the games really ramping up, that they're going to be really, really, really good. They have a very good goalie who has done it against the Golden Knights in the playoffs now. I would not have said that last year. I think DeBoer has now done it against the Golden Knights in the playoffs and potentially even a better team than they have right now. Yes, I am still concerned about Dallas. I don't want to see Dallas until at least the Western Conference Final. I would prefer it's two teams that are not Edmonton, Dallas, and Winnipeg in the first 2 rounds. Like anybody else, I'm probably fine with. Minnesota doesn't scare me that much. Goalie's pretty good, so maybe we have to shift things a little bit on that. But yeah, as of right now, I'm like, can we get through 2 rounds with it not being Edmonton and Dallas? That would be ideal. Do I know what the injuries to Watt or Barbashev are? I do not. Barbashev got kind of flipped over and slammed on his back. I'm assuming it's something to do with that. We don't know what the injury is to Wah. There was some murmurs kind of on the radio that I was told about that some of the shifting in the lines late in the third period and earlier in the game was maybe taking a look at potentially doing some different things with somebody potentially coming back. Usually the people who are doing the broadcasts have some information when they say that, so maybe we're getting close on one of them, although I've thought that before and sometimes it doesn't pan out, so I wouldn't take that one to the bank, but wouldn't really throw that out if you got nothing. So maybe one of them's close, maybe both is close. I don't know. I don't, as far as like putting Barbashev on IR, putting Wah on IR. I do think that putting Wah on IR before Barbashev kind of seemed to indicate that the timeline was more likely shorter for Barbashev than Wah. Now putting Barbashev on IR this late in this situation, I don't think that means all that much in regards to the timeline. If we turned out and find out that was LTIR, which it is not at the moment as far as we know, then that would change things. But for now, I don't have a real good idea. Bunch of home games coming up, opportunities for these guys to skate. Hopefully they will. I don't necessarily know what to read into. Barbashev didn't skate today. That doesn't sound great to me. I still go back to one of the discussions where Cassidy said something along the lines of, if you know a guy's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks, maybe that was one of the 2 guys. I still don't think we have a ton of information. We're kind of just trying to piece things together. Wouldn't shock me if either of them are back all that soon. I don't think either are going to play the next game, but it wouldn't shock me if either are back that soon. It also wouldn't shock me if neither are back for another couple of weeks. So that's it. Thanks again to the Jimmerson Law Firm sponsoring all of the SinBin Periscopes. Good night.